My name is Ashley Knapp, and I am a research assistant professor within the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern University. My research interests involve leveraging emerging technologies to study the vulnerability of internalizing disorders among youth and to develop effective prevention programs designed to reduce the incidence of such disorders. Most recently, I was awarded a Career Development Award from NIMH, in which I am partnering with teens and a local community organization to co-design a technology-enabled prevention service for teen anxiety. So when thinking through which community organization would be a good fit, I began to learn that there has been a movement in Chicago, where I currently live, for public libraries to provide social services to their patrons, in addition to the typical services we think of libraries providing. And so to point out the Chicago Tribune article I brought up here that goes over social workers working within library settings, a library director stated, "We started looking at patrons in a different way, that maybe some of the behavioral issues we were having at the library were stemming from other needs we could address." And what I began to realize through this process is what a unique and promising context the library could be to embed a prevention service for teens. So for this grant, I'm partnering with a local library and their teen services. And the design and testing process is what I've depicted here in the diagram. The blue circles, they depict sessions or touch points that we will have with stakeholders. And the stakeholders in this project are youth that frequent the teen services at the library, and then library staff. And so first, from the left to the right, we'll begin with interviews and design workshops, and then move on to usability testing and pilot testing. And then the yellow squares, they depict the data analysis process and the prototype refinement that will occur between the sessions. And so for example, right now we're doing interviews and design workshops. And so what I'm learning from the youth and what I'm learning from the staff will be analyzed, and then that will directly inform the design of the prototype that will then be presented to the youth and staff for usability testing. So it goes through multiple iterative cycles. And the broader goal of this project is to develop a service that can be scaled up to other settings, both nationwide and locally. So examples of other potential settings are local organizations. So in Chicago, so like the Chicago Public Library would make the most sense, but also other schools, hospitals, other organizations. So thanks so much, and I hope to chat with you about this research soon. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Jason Yip, an assistant professor at the Information School at the University of Washington. I'm a learning scientist, and I spend much of my research addressing and understanding learning contexts, in particular the children within them, their identity development, and the types of help they need for learning. My research is also in human-computer interaction and examining how youth interact with technology and how the design of technology support youth participation. I'm also in the information and library sciences, where I study how libraries are new community learning spaces for youth. I use all these three areas to answer this question: how does digital technology influence how families are collaboratively learning together? And so we live in the digital age in which children are growing up with constant connectivity. These connections provide opportunities for social support and creativity outlets, but they also offer risks such as screen time addiction, cyberbullying, and privacy loss. And for many parents, finding information on how to adapt to this digital connectivity is difficult. And in discussions with children and teens, many attribute this conflict with their parents due to adult lack of understanding of what and why children use these devices. And so simply put, there's utter confusion among parents and teens on how to best mitigate information communication technologies together. And so currently, most family advice focuses on top-down approaches from child development experts, researchers, and educators. But missing from this conversation are youth perspectives on use and how they would advise their families. And so this project expands on exploratory and participatory work we've been doing, focusing on bringing youth perspective technologies to families. Our initial work includes both youth participatory action research and participatory design methods to learn how families are using technology, what parents want to know about parenting around media and technology, what youth can share about best practices for parenting them, and how to best share youth-created information with parents. Through youth participatory action research, middle schoolers in California are generating insightful data about technology use by families and sharing that data with adolescent design team in Washington State. Participatory design as well is a form of democratic and collaborative work together with users and designers. And so we've been trying to design with teens to understand what they are seeking and how to communicate with their families about their tech usage. And through these democratic methods of research and design and content generation, we're trying to create a repository that showcases the diverse perspectives of technology usage by children and adolescents, which typically have been unheard and ignored, and also encourage greater parent-child communication around media and technology usage. So in the future studies that we're working on right now, following a connected learning model, we're partnering with several nonprofit education organizations, particularly with DreamYard, a program that collaborates with Bronx youth and the families in schools to build pathways to equity and opportunity through the arts. And so overall, this project emphasizes four major outcomes: the development of a scalable and beneficial process that includes youth participatory action research, participatory design, and contributions to the repository site, the implementation and analysis of a repository toolkit and activities for families, the development of workshops and content creation workshops that can help families with these resources, and the understanding of how parental practices, attitudes around technology can be mediated and influenced through youth perspectives. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day and enjoy the rest of the conference.
My name is Jess Navarro. I am a fourth year PhD student at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro in Human Development and Family Studies. I also have my MS in HDFS, a Master's in Social Work from WashU, and a BA in Public Health from Brown. I got hooked up with this group through Dr. Mikey Jensen, who was a mentor and a member of my dissertation committee. And my research interests largely center around technology and the family system. Right now, I'm looking at two projects, one about parenting practices and attitudes related to technology, and the other looking at developmental theory in a digital context. I'm going to give you a quick glimpse into those two papers that I'm writing at the moment. So the theory paper is with my advisor, Dr. Jonathan Tudge. He worked with Yuri Bronfenbrenner, and he's one of the foremost theorists about bioecological theory. In this paper, we're really trying to take the person, process, context, time model and shift it to be applicable to virtual interactions and activities. Now, we're talking about changes in each one of these, but I'd like to really focus right now on talking about the context. So Bronfenbrenner talked about microsystems as existing in a physical location. So he described them in terms of the home, the school, the work microsystem. But when we think about virtual interactions and activities, those are happening in a different microsystem. And so in this paper, we're describing them as virtual microsystems. And this is different from a physical microsystem in the fact that it's not spatially or temporally bound, and one can exist in multiple microsystems at once. And Bronfenbrenner discussed that you really can only be in one microsystem. So these are some major changes, but they really reflect how we're interacting in a digital context. The second paper that I'm working on is something I've been started almost 2 years ago now. I've been working to develop a measure of digital parental mediation. So I've been working with my mentor, another mentor, Dr. Ann Fletcher, and we did a deep dive into the parental mediation literature around television and some of the earlier work around technology. And then we held focus groups to develop some items in these 5 areas that we really saw as subscales. So in this measure, we have an active mediation subscale, restrictive mediation and modeling, co-use, and technological agency. And we piloted this measure with 500 parents in January of 2020, along with some other measures related to technological use, parenting practices, parenting style, demographic information. And since then, I have been doing some psychometric studies of the measure. I did an EFA on one half and a CFA on the other. The models are looking really good. So we're currently writing that up for publication. And long term, what I'd really like to do is the next step is to take this measure and use it in a cross-sectional study as wave one of a longitudinal study. I really think that having that time-ordered perspective is really going to help us answer the question about what mediation strategies promote family cohesion and communication, reduce conflict, and best support children and adolescents, and can hopefully help us develop an intervention to support parents and practitioners when it comes to parenting around digital technology and social media. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucia Magis Weinberg and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at UC Berkeley. I'm delighted to present to you today the Transitions Project. I work under the supervision of Dr. Rondal in the Adolescent Research Collaborative. I did a PhD in developmental cognitive neuroscience at UCL, where I studied how executive functions develop during adolescence. And before that, I trained as a medical doctor in Mexico. My research interests are adolescent media use and well-being in Latin America, and I'm especially interested in working with schools as platforms of promotion of healthy digital habits for early adolescents. As a postdoc, I built Transitions, a researcher-practitioner collaboration between us, Innova Schools, and Common Sense Education, and we've been working together since 2018 to promote digital citizenship. Innova Schools is a charter school network system that serves students in low and middle income urban settings in Peru and Mexico, reaching over 30,000 students in total. We're especially focused on the transitional years of middle school, where early adolescents are undergoing profound physical, psychological, and social changes, and also start using devices and social media much more frequently and more autonomously, with all the risks and opportunities that this brings. On the research side of the project, we have built a large survey data set of Peruvian and Mexican adolescents' experience with technology and well-being. We're sampling across the whole adolescent age range with a focus on the transitional years, as I mentioned, and we are lucky that we have a diverse population in two countries that are often not well represented in the research literature on these topics. We have data on mental health, well-being, technology access, use, and appropriation, and we have data before and during the pandemic. On the practice side, we have been working with Common Sense Education to adapt their digital citizenship materials for this context. The materials were originally developed for children and adolescents growing up in the US, so we had to undergo some cultural adaptations, translating them into Spanish, then training the teachers for delivery of the materials, and we have been evaluating the impact of the intervention. Last year in 2019, we were piloting these materials in person in 6 sites, and this year, due to the move to remote instruction, we actually managed to implement to scale, reaching 65 schools and all the middle school population. Having this existing relationship with schools meant that we were well placed to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. In April this year, we redesigned our curricula to really promote well-being during the crisis, and we reached over 20,000 students between 4th and 11th grade in these schools. We simultaneously surveyed their experiences during the quarantine, and amongst many other findings, we do highlight how important technology has been to build social bridges during a time of physical distancing. As you can imagine, we have tons of data, and we would love to explore avenues for collaboration, so don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks for your attention.
Hello, my name is Franceli Ciprian, and I am a Mexican researcher working as an assistant professor at the Fowler School of Engineering at Chapman. I got my bachelor degree in computer engineering from the Mexican Technology University campus Culiacan. That is when I realized I could make a career in academia and I could build technology to support children. So I'm start researching by creating a social network prototype that use AI technology to personalize multiplication exercise for elementary school children. After that, I got a fellowship from the Mexican government to do a master and a PhD in computer science in CICESE, the biggest research center in Mexico. During that time, I learned how to do cutting-edge research to support vulnerable populations, such as children with autism. So I quickly fell in love with human-computer interaction and started designing emerging interactive technology to support child development. I believe that children are the future, and the better opportunities they have, no matter their income or their parents' background, they can become whatever they want. So I took one projector and a camera, and with mouse coding, I built an interactive floor where children can practice visual-motor coordination skills. After that, I shift the technology and add one piece of fabric, and I built bendable sound. An elastic display, which given their elasticity, allow children to change the surface by pulling, pushing, or twisting. A pilot control randomized study shows that bendable sound could support the force control of children with autism. After I finished my PhD, I crossed the wall between Mexico and the US. So I did my postdoctoral training at the informatics department at the University of California, Irvine, where I was lucky enough to work with Gillian Hayes, who allowed me to keep building technology to support children, but now using wearables and co-designing with children with ADHD. I was amazed in a pilot washout phase of a deployment study that children with ADHD were able to wear and charge the watch almost daily. So, as future work, I'm looking forward to explore how smartwatches can support a self-regulation and how the foldable displays can support motor skills for children. I believe that emerging technology can have a dual purpose. First, support child development, and second, we can use the data collected to create intelligent models that can help in the assessment of behaviors and speed up the diagnosis. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lana Yarosh, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at University of Minnesota. In my research, I investigate social connectedness technologies for critical contexts. More people feel chronically lonely now than in any past generation, and we live in the age of the great debate about this condition. The debate is about the role of technology in connecting or disconnecting us. Some may argue that technology is at the core of increasing loneliness. It allows us to have these outer trappings of social connection while all we're doing is feeding our narcissism, expecting instant gratification, and refusing to reveal any vulnerability. Others may say, look, the technology may be new, but the same moral panic about disconnection used to be aimed at print periodicals. Now, when we're using technology, at least we're actively connecting with each other instead of just passively consuming content. Now, I'm going to leave it up to you to decide where you fall in this dimension. But regardless, this is the invisible battlefield where I do my research. Over the past decade, I've developed a number of systems specifically to help children stay connected with important others in their lives across distance. The hallmark of these systems is embodiment and shared activity rather than talking heads. I achieved this through the use of projection, augmented reality, and more recently, haptics. I do this work in close design partnerships with children and families in a variety of separation contexts. However, because of the specific technologies and the context of their deployment, my prior body of work has inadvertently focused on privileged families. My more recent work seeks to go beyond the home and help children and families who may be particularly vulnerable to disconnection. I have begun working with schools to provide at-risk children with access to older adult mentors in their community, and I'm just beginning to expand my work to the context of incarcerated families, a particularly large population in the US. I was recently awarded tenure, which puts me in the position of being able to consider how I want to work in ways that are right for me. There are three things that are on my mind right now. First, especially as I move to work with people who may be vulnerable or marginalized, I would like to do this work in engaged partnerships. Now, these take access, time, trust, and resources and can be quite challenging to do right. I'm still struggling with this. Second, I find that my work is increasingly eschewing technical novelty for its own sake in favor of broader impacts and socio-technical deployments. The challenge is that this can be difficult to position within the current funding paradigms in the US, and I could certainly use mentorship right now in trying to pursue funding that's not just from the National Science Foundation. Finally, I find myself in a constant struggle against the current pace of research. And one example is that certainly my work is quite relevant during the pandemic, which has meant more opportunities, but also more people shifting to their work in their area. The temptation is to rush towards some kind of a foothold or dominion in this area, but for me, that approach has never led to the kind of research I want to do, particularly because it doesn't provide adequate time or reflection to consider possible negative consequences of work, such as increased disparities resulting from shifting key resources to online delivery, or the ways that technology can be done wrong, and then it can disconnect us. I want to remain cognizant of my contributions to the great debate. That's it.
Hello, my name is Maya Hernandez, and I am a third-year PhD student in the Social Ecology Core program at UC Irvine under the primary mentorship of Dr. Candace Odgers. Many people ask me, what does a social ecology PhD even entail? And in short, it means that I think of my research questions with the domains of the social ecological framework in mind, which inherently lends itself to an interdisciplinary and action-based research approach. I work at the intersection of psychology, public health, and HCI. My main research interest includes how persistent social media use is influencing adolescent development and mental health, and in particular, how we can leverage this persistent use of technologies to promote positive development and well-being among historically underrepresented and marginalized youth. There is a vast opportunity to harness the accessibility and ubiquitous use of these digital platforms to bridge a troubling gap that pertains to the lack of mental health care resources and access during this particular developmental period. Some of the work that I have done so far includes analyzing the open access dataset via the ABCD study to understand associations between screen time and mental health outcomes among early adolescents. The results of this revealed that theory-driven correlates to mental health outcomes such as family history of mental illness, neighborhood safety, and school behaviors still hold stronger associations to internalizing behaviors compared to social media and screen time. I'm also working with collaborators in analyzing a mixed method study investigating parental monitoring behaviors among early adolescent social media use. And in response to COVID-19, I am working with the Center for Scholars and Storytellers at UCLA in co-leading a developmentally and research-informed guideline to help storytellers and content creators adjust their narratives on screen to promote healthy behaviors among youth during a public health crisis. The main project I am working on at UCI is through the Connected Learning Lab for the Youth Connections for Wellbeing project, led by Drs. Mimi Ito, Stephen Schuler, and Candace Odgers. There are multiple lenses to this project, and currently I am focused on evaluating existing social media-based mental health profiles. I am currently planning the next steps of this research design to take a mixed methods approach to survey adolescents online and conduct focus groups to better understand how certain adolescent subgroups use social media for mental health support. We plan to begin this work through a continued partnership with Listo America, an after-school STEM program, to better understand the unique challenges and opportunities that Latinx youth communities may face and how social media intersects with their needs and support systems. As you can see, in order to address these issues around adolescence, mental health, and social media, there are many dynamic components, such as parent-family relationships, peer influence, school, sociocultural, neighborhood impacts, and eventual policy and tech design considerations. As I am developing the skills and knowledge needed to address this issue, I am excited to dive deeper into an understanding of developmentally appropriate mental health messaging frameworks and how it is best translated on social media to reach a diverse group of youth. I hope to have the opportunity to work and converse with you all to think collaboratively for a solution towards a healthy and positive online space for a diverse group of adolescents. And thank you so much.